Etsko, it might be worth just going a little deeper into some of those elements of
right. Please, Graham.
enabling the people.
Yeah.
That's the part that sort of interested me. And as human beings, we've all got our own sort of foibles and our own anxieties and our own fears and all of those kind of things. And whether we like it or not, we bring that with us, when we come to work. And I think what certainly the care and growth thematic did for me personally, and I think for AEL as a whole, was really to discuss this issue of that you're here to give, to contribute, and the size of a big person, in a sense, is a person who can contribute more, right. and that's the measure, And right. Too often we sort of think of ourselves, well, I can contribute more, but do I contribute more, And the issue is about being able to creating an environment in which people can contribute. And on the sort of finest level, it is really about the individual, So although you can deal with organizations, and we had an organization at that stage of 3,000 to 4,000 people, at, I don't know, 200 managers or 250 managers or something like that, leaders all in their own right. But effectively, you change the organization one person at a time, and that is where the focus of the leadership for me made such a big difference. It's in that area of going beyond your sort of your limited sense of self. In other words, looking beyond your own sort of self-interest. Right. And there's where I say we'll bring our sort of fears and our anxieties. And in the work situation, very often we do get confronted by situations where we've either got to put the bigger good of the company, ahead of our own self-interest, or we've got to sort of retreat into our lager. And I think the real interesting part of that is if you can create the environment in which your managers feel secure enough to suspend their own agendas. Because the real interesting thing, and this is something I've only really realized the full extent of it later on, sort of looking back. Really? The really interesting thing is that, when you step out of the limited sense of self, by definition, you're stepping into the unlimited. There's a vast spaciousness. Suddenly it's like the brakes have been released from your thinking. It's because you suspend you're effectively suspending your own past judgments. You're putting that aside, and that limits your options at any one time. So if you could imagine, so whatever that happened to me is that I did this, and I felt this feeling of energizing and enthusiasm as I was able to go beyond my own sort of and have the courage to step over that line of your own sort of self-interest and into this field where there's really unlimited potential. Amazing. Yeah. And when you do that yourself, you suddenly realize, well, hang on, I'm nothing special. Everyone can do that. Yeah. And so you interact with people in a different way. Even, I'm not talking about now, the training that we did, which helped people to do. But if you look at interacting in a different way with people, so I interact with you, I look at you and I think, no, Etsko will never agree to that. I won't even ask you. Yeah. Self-interest. But then if I were to interact with you in a way that said, hang on, let's just give him the opportunity. I'm going to take the opportunity to suspend my self-interest. Let's give Etsko the opportunity to suspend his. Yeah. And in that, when we both then, if you're able to achieve that, and not everyone does, but what I've found, the more you give people the opportunity, the more they do rise to that kind of thing. And the more you've suspended your agenda, the more they drop their own agenda. Right. So you enter into a space of sort of problem solving. I mean, it is literally the space of all potential, I mean, everything is open. So, and it just struck me while I was reading through this that right now there must be a lot of people facing the so-called burning platform as this COVID virus comes down the line. Yes. They're having to go beyond it. Everyone will feel fear. Everyone will feel anxiety. Everyone will feel worried. Some people, small businessmen, are probably paralyzed with fear at the moment.
That's right.
Now, if they can suspend their own judgment just for a while, just suspend that sense of themselves being the ones which are sort of victims of this, and step over that limited sense of self, you step into a completely different space of problem solving. And I think, the opportunities are endless.
Yeah.
And you can imagine a whole organization running like that. We wouldn't have had.
Yeah.
So
can
that's
you remember any given instances where that actually happened to you, does anything come to mind where you actually had that experience that, in hindsight, that's what happened?
Well, no, exactly. I can remember working it was still when I wasn't running the company, I was a senior manager in the company. Yeah. And we got together in a group of 3 people, of like-minded people from different functions. And we worked in a team for 3 or 4 days. We locked ourselves away. And the thing that I remember most about that was everyone just suspending their own agenda, and just the space that was opened up. And this was in the face of fierce competition coming to the business, in the face of overruns and quality and all of these things. And we were trying to map out a path for this business. And the work that came out of that team ended up running the business vision for the next 10 years, So the quality of the work was incredible. And we were good managers. There were a lot of good people in the company, but the only difference between us and the others at the time was that we had been able to completely suspend our own functional sort of positions and not kind of defend our patches against the other people, but put everything on the line and enable a new solution or the best solution to rise up out of this. So I think it can be done. But people in AL, it was being done. I think, looking back now, people used names like, it felt like the brakes had been taken off, or it felt like the organization had been energized, or it felt like there was a new look at things. See, all of these things are a result of that ability. And that ability goes back to the basic care and growth model, in the sense of that, you're looking at leaders moving up the sort of path of I'm here to get on the one hand, and I'm here to give on the other. And as you go up that path of giving, you bump up against your own limitations in that process. That is the definition of growth. Growth is not an easy thing. It's not a pleasant. It's a thing which requires the courage to step beyond. So I think it was that process that we ended up with a number of different sort of solutions coming out, and just a completely different feel about the company at the end of that process.
Yeah. Graham, I remember at the time, I think it's one of your colleagues who said to me that you can't change an organization if you don't have mates. And there's something, so there's something really interesting. So you spoke about the sort of triumvirate of people who decided we're going to suspend our agenda, we're going to act on the basis of what's good for the company. And that magic that happened between 3 individuals, putting their own interests and, if you like, their own intelligence aside. I mean, from the point of view of not trying to convince anybody else of how clever they were, but just sparking your own insights and allowing something truly collaborative to come out of the stew, that saved a business of 3,000 people and set the strategy for 10 years. And you did that in 3 days. I mean, one wonders how many tricks like that aren't missed by people who are struggling with struggling organizations. The whole magic of collaborativeness that comes out of people suspending their agendas.
Well, exactly. And I think the problem is that the more the threat, and again, that's very relevant to where we are now, the more the tendency is for people to sort of go back inside their lager, to protect their patches and things. And that is exactly the wrong thing. If everyone does that, there's just a very sort of static and sterile environment, and you end up compromising, saying, well, you're all going to have to cut by 10% or something like that, or 40%. you know, instead of finding a true new solution. Right. So I think, you know, that is the issue. You do need, I mean, there is definitely, I used to sort of think of an organization's capability, you know, as the sort of sum of the capability of the people. But I mean, I got to realize that that's like a tenth of the organization's capability. Because the real capability is putting the people together, you know, right. and what comes out of people really, you know, working together is sometimes an order of magnitude more than what either could produce on their own, you know, and I think that is the untapped potential in a lot of organizations now. Well, certainly in my day, it was difficult to tap that sort of potential. And things like bonus schemes and things don't often help unless they are, you know, that's why those kind of relation to how you paid and how you remunerated need to be around the holistic entity. Rather than on an individual basis. And I think if you look back in the day, a lot of them were sort of individual-based bonuses, and that encouraged completely the wrong kind of behavior, you know. And the issue is really to be able to suspend your own agenda and move past your own fears. But that's easier said than done, you know, because that is the essence of the growth of the individual is to be able to, you know, move past your own limited sense of self. Yeah. And there is even in situations where you're dealing with a loan, if you sit and look at it and deliberately suspend your own sense of self, you immediately get a different perspective. There's kind of space around the problem, because instead of looking at it from one angle, you're now looking at it from any angle. So you can see a multifaceted view of the problem. So even on your own, it's possible to do that. But the real magic comes is where you get a team of people working together. And I think, you know, in the sort of craftsman sense of the word, this kind of ability to spend yourself is sort of called flow. You know, it's like people get into the kind of flow of things, or like from a sportsman's point of view. So but you can also see a team, you know, in a team event. They get into a kind of a team flow, and that's exactly what I'm talking about here. Where somehow they're not, each player isn't playing just to be the hero himself, you know. He's playing for the team, and that is, I think, what attracts these great audiences to these big team games. Right. Is because you can almost feel the energy that comes and really achieves that kind of sense of flow between the players. So it's definitely there. It's a question of how do you enable it? And that's almost the wrong question, because when you try to enable it, you by definition sort of staying in your own comfort zone. You're staying in your own. You've got to actually move beyond into an unconditionality to get to the point where this happens. In other words, if I'm thinking, well, if I've got this problem, and I need to solve the problem, you know, perhaps if I disregard the fact that it's my problem, it'll resolve itself. So I'm really just doing it in order to resolve the problem.
That's right. Yeah.
You've got to just realize that the worst could happen. Maybe there is no solution to this, but whatever happens, the best thing you can do is to actually participate from the spaciousness and from the ability to look at all options in the field of all possibilities, rather than looking at it narrowly from your own specific background and functional sort of sense. So I think that's where a lot of potential still lies.
But I mean, that's speaking to kind of like a spiritual maturity by the people concerned. And it's not, I mean, it's an ability to step back and, in a sense, disengage, to allow others to speak and to allow the situation to speak. But this is not the leaders that we cultivate in organizations generally. I mean, we like the sheriff, you know, the guy who comes in with a 6-shooter and his boots to kind of, you know, what do the Americans say, kind of to slap backsides and take names. You know, it's you know, it's kind of a, you know, we like the iconic hero leaders, and I mean, maybe that's true in some industries, but increasingly, I think that's just not true. I think you need a different kind of person, a person who doesn't know how to stand out, but a person who knows how to stand in.
Yeah, look, and there is a role for the leader, obviously, and this is not in that sense just sort of a collaborative, there's a collaborative element to this. But I think you raised a very good point, because it was raised to me at the time, so what is sort of AEL dabbling in almost spiritual, or some call it psychological or whatever kind of things. And the issue is, it gets back to very simple issues, Etsko. It's about courage and generosity. Now, courage and generosity, we felt were legitimate things that we could talk to our people in the company. So we didn't sort of expect, or insist on any kind of spiritual kind of ideology or anything like that. The issue was simply about courage and generosity. And the wonderful thing about a work environment, any environment actually, is it conspires to confront you with those very things, which are the things which are holding you back. So in other words, if I'm a person and I don't like confronting people, sort of verbal confrontations, so you'll find that there'll be a person in my team at some point who will need to be confronted very clearly on something like values or something or performance-related issues. And at that point, I've got the option of either trying to move him out and pass the problem off onto a colleague of mine, or I've got to actually overcome my fear of confrontation, and I've got to move beyond that. And so at that, and it's the job of my leader, the person I'm pointing to, is to make sure. We used to call it a T-junction. You take a person to a T-junction. Right. Remember the T-junction? You've either got to confront and actually talk to the person, or you're going to disappear into your logger, which means you're probably not going to carry on in that role, or you're going to move down and you'll move on to some other role, maybe a technical role or something where you don't need to confront people. So you see, that is legitimate. And in that process, so let's say I managed to, with some coaching from you, my leader, I managed to actually now get the courage, and I confront this person, and I go through the process, and at the end of it, a lot of the times the person says, "Wow, I'm glad thank you for telling me this." I mean, no one's ever told me this before. No one's had the honesty to tell me that, and the feeling immediately. So in an interaction like that, you're unlikely to get the sort of space of all possibilities and create sort of problem solving. But even there, you find there's a massive release of energy.
Right.
So there's a release of energy on both ends. Even if it means, the worst possible news for this guy's going to leave or whatever, the fact is there's honesty in the relationship. And from my point of view, the release of energy, I feel that previously I'd felt that I couldn't confront people. Now I feel that I can, and it's just like such a different feeling. And the next time you hit another, obstacle, you can, you realize that you just got to get the courage and work up to being able to get over it. And that is the essence of growth in the organization. And as a result of that, and if you can get the managers really buying into the concept of we used to call it benevolent intent of the organization, but people today probably call it core purpose or strategic intent or whatever. That is the goal, which is bigger than everyone, and so that is the goal. If you can get people and really live that as a company, then you'll find the people within the company are able to suspend their own agenda, because they've had this issue of courage and generosity, going down the line where they've had to coach other people and they've been coached in that. So when they come to a meeting, you do get this process where people are prepared to put their things on the line, move back from their own agendas, and explore space which previously didn't exist. So I think maybe I was sort of overstating it in hindsight, that it looks like a spiritual thing. In its essence, you're absolutely right, it is. But in its practical use, it just feels like the brakes have been released, like energy is available, like enthusiasm's in the organization. There's a kind of newness to the problems. Because you see, when you bring your own agenda into a problem, you effectively bringing the past in, and you effectively saying that the future is going to be like the past. So you're creating a kind of a continuity between the future and the past. By suspending your own agenda and moving beyond it, you create a space which is simply now in the present. Yeah. And the future then becomes an extension of the present, which is new. It's never the same. So so you've got a completely new area of problem solving and a completely new energy going forward, even if out of that comes the same sort of activities that you would have done in the same old way. Yeah. There's a freshness and newness and an energy about them, which just doesn't exist if you have people all closing down their camps and all just sort of trying to arrange things to suit themselves. So that's really the biggest issue to me in organization transformation, is to try and enable the managers to be able to unleash this kind of energy, even in a very small, stepwise fashion, in issues. The amount of energy that gets released is enormous.
Graham, that was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Always a privilege talking to you, Etsko.
I'd be very grateful if we can turn this not into a single conversation, but a bit of a series, if you don't mind. Because,
that'll work.
I mean, I learn as I'm getting. I suppose you have the same experience, but it's this thing of hindsight. It's both in terms of where one succeeded and where one failed. You kind of it's not the same place looking back at it than what it was when you were there. And so there's a richness to the interpretation which the years have given you. So if you don't mind, I would like to abuse this privilege and maybe have a few more of these.
Well, I think you can, Etsko, but I do think, look, I mean, there is practical, there are practical sort of elements to this. But as you were sort of saying, it does have a spiritual element, and I'm not sure you'll have to judge how much of your audience is ready for a more sort of a spiritual approach compared to people that want the nuts and bolts of how do you do it in organizational transformation. What are the levers you pull? How does it work? That sort of thing. And because what you guys are doing works on many levels. We've spoken about this before. That it works on the sort of just toolage level. There's a tool for this. It's a leadership diagnostic. This is how you do it. Ask why, and you get an answer, and you take action on that basis. So it's it can be a sort of a mechanistic sort of a instrument if that's how you choose to apply it. It works. There's no question about it. But the essence that I was interested in is the exact opposite to that. It's the depth, the essence of the thing.
Right.
And that's where people, that's why I still say it too. That's why people still come up to me and to you, probably more to you than to me, but sometimes to me, and say, wow, what you did there in AL with the leadership stuff has changed my life, basically.
Fantastic.
And because of that essence, you see, that essence was there, which is probably the spiritual dimension, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, there's nothing. I don't think one has to apologize for that as a business, because there's nothing sort of soft about it, or
hocus pocus.
The opposite. It's about courage, and generosity. These aren't things which are soft. So, I mean, that is the area which as I sort of grow older and I look back, that's the area that I mull over more than the exact effect of introducing 20 T's and how we use the accountability matter or whatever. That is interesting still, and it's very useful. But I'm not sure that I'm the best person.
The point you made to me the other day in the conversation we had. You said you could. Any organizational change will, by definition, not last, but the contribution you've made to an individual, that's permanent. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I think that is the thing. Once you step over that, even a small step, it's virtually, you may wander back for a time, but you'll never be the same again.
Yeah.
And also, people took time. There's some people that you and I both know who rebelled against what we were doing. Eventually left the organization, and 3 or 4 or 5 years later, called you guys into the
That's right.
new organization.
I had a few experiences like that, actually. I mean, in fact, one of my biggest sources of business has been a guy where exactly that happened. Exactly that happened.
No, sure. So, that just tells you that these things are, and there is a seed there, and a deep seed. Sometimes a seed, and sometimes we being our sort of narrowly defined sense of self, rebel against that seed. We don't want to listen to it. We don't want to hear it, And those are the guys that move on. But the seed grows, and then lo and behold, there they are,
Yeah.
So, but that, I think, is, as we said, that is the most rewarding part of the whole job, looking back on it, because the other stuff, I'm sure I did some good stuff which the organization is thankful for. I'm sure right now they're also cursing me for doing some stuff which they're not thankful for, in terms of projects and things like that, and having to work their way out of, all of that is as it is, and times change, and you take a view and maybe you don't get everything right. But the issue really then is about the people, and those people have changed significantly, positively, and largely irreversibly.
Graham, thank you very much for your time.